Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Each week we sit down for a chat with someone just like you, someone who had an idea, a passion, a dream, or sometimes just a thought, and planted that seed, watched it grow into something they wanted to share with the world. If you have an idea for a topic or someone that would be a guest for the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, where you can join our Never Too Late Cafe Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. Hello, everyone. This is the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, sponsored by Never Too Late Cafe. I'm Laura Womack, your host, and I have a very special guest with me today, Katrina Harper. Hi, Katrina.
Hello.
Let's start out by you're not from this area. You're from Texas originally? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
I was born in Texas. That's where my family's from. And then we moved to Kentucky. And then I grew up in Lexington. And I've lived all over, but I live back in Lexington now and have raised my kids here.
Well, we had met through someone that we met in common. We met at a Wood Songs, as we had mentioned before. So you have a very special connection. So can you share with us about that?
Sure. I, by happenstance, had through a mutual friend met Ron Whitehead on Facebook. And that originated from my very good friend, Jeff Blake, who has since passed away. But through a mutual friend of his, I noticed that their friend was Jinbug, which is Ron's partner. And we got to talking about all the wonderful people that we had in common, of friends that we know in Louisville. So we became Facebook friends. And that is how I ended up meeting Ron. And the very first time we had corresponded on Facebook, I had another good friend of mine, Jim Forrest, who has also since passed away. He was an expert on Thomas Merton and Lawrence Ferlinghetti and a lot of the creative, I guess you would call them creators, that Ron and I were both familiar with. So he had some letters between Lawrence Ferlinghetti and Thomas Merton that I thought Ron would find interesting. So that was the very first time we ever corresponded. I sent him copies of those letters that he was thrilled to see, because he, knew some of these people in person, but he had not seen those particular letters before. And then a little while after that, he had posted about a blues singer that he knows in Estonia, and had written a piece about how she uses singing blues for healing. And I sent him another message at that point, and I said, "Oh, this resonates with me so much because I also sing for healing." And then he said, "Oh, well, why don't you send me some of your singing? I'm looking for a singer right now." And he has said since then, he, as I do, believe so much in the timing of things. And so he said, "Oh, send me some of your stuff. I'm looking for a singer." And so I just happened to have some recordings I had done for my good friend Jeff that had already passed away. He had asked me to record some songs for him while he was in his cancer treatments. And so those were just done, on a cell phone. I have a small little bathroom that has good acoustics. And so I had some of those.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
The bathroom recording.
Yeah. I mean, you do what you got to do, right?
Right.
And but I did have one professional recording because a good friend of mine, Chris Mears, who is in our neighborhood and is a really talented musician, a few months before I met Ron, had asked me to sing on one of his pieces that he produced and released. And so I did have that, professional, more than recorded in a bathroom thing, to also send to Ron. And so that was another wonderful timing, because I had had quite a long break, 20 years or so, except for singing at Jeff's funeral, of not singing in public, just singing in private. It was it became more of a private thing for me after having performed a lot
Wow.
growing up. And so going to Chris's house to record that piece a couple months before I met Ron was the first time I had done anything, even though it was just two of us in a studio at his house. That was the most public thing I had done since Jeff's funeral. And so all of those things just fit together so perfectly. And then, so after Ron had heard a few of those pieces, he asked me to do a project with his band, the Storm Generation Band, wonderful, talented, awesome guys in that band. And the first project we did was for Jack Kerouac's 100th anniversary. So that was the first one. And that's been, gosh, that's probably been like 9 months ago now, was that 100th anniversary project. And we've gotten to do several things since then. And then he invited me to come and be one of the songwriters for the Wood Songs event. And there you go. And that's where we met.
Oh my, what a story. The evolution of it, I still say it's not the end product, it's the process, the path, the journey to get there that is so amazing. I mean, yeah, you get a product at the end, whether it's a song or a book or whatever someone's working on, but I love the stories.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
and I know before we booked our time today, you had shared some videos with me. And can you give me a little background on them? They're both one's music video and the other has music. So can you share a little more about them?
Sure. The music video, it's the most recent project that Chris Mears, our neighbor, has done. It's an awesome song that he wrote. It's off of his Escapist album. It's called Midnight Ghost. And the video, Chris Widener, shot all the video and produced the music video for it, which is, I love so much. The video and the song just came out amazing. So check out Chris Mears' Midnight Ghost also. And they had a wonderful time making that video.
How do you
And
spell Chris's last name?
sure, Chris Mears is
Yes.
Mears.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And then my Chris is Chris Widener, Weidner. And he used to do filmmaking and music videos and wildlife video and stuff. And he still does for his work as well. But this was his first um, producing a music video project for a while too. And they had a lot of fun on that one. And the other one that I had sent, the song, The Force of Nature, is a song that Chris Mears had written about my story. He would always come over and show us his new music. And that particular day, he played Force of Nature for us, and we were just blown away, as we always are. Wonderful music that he creates. And then at the end, he said, and that song is about you. It was such a impactful, special moment. I mean, I've never had anybody write a song about my life. It was just like jaw-droppingly amazing moment and very, very touching. And it's still to this day one of my absolute favorite songs. And that one is called Force of Nature.
Wow. I bet
That
that was an emotional time to find that someone had written a song about you.
Absolutely. I think all three of us were in tears that day. It was like, oh my goodness, it was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. Absolutely.
Let's talk about your poetry side. I've noticed that when you post on social media, you share some poems, and I'm going to say that there's a little line at the end of all of them that's a little different. And can you explain what that is when you share someone else's poetry and there's a word at the bottom?
Oh, I've kind of morphed that into different things over the years. When I originally started posting, I would use the location of wherever I had taken the picture because I use all my own pictures. And so I used to always list the location. And then a couple of years later, I started using more of just whatever word spoke to me from the picture or from the poem. And then recently, the last couple of years, I have been doing picking a word and looking up the Latin. And so lately, the word at the bottom is a Latin translation of whatever word was speaking to me from that post. Yeah.
That is amazing because I'm like, I'm going to ask this dumb question, but I was like, there is some purpose to this, and I think when we talked earlier, I said that you're very purposeful. So now I see it. So you mentioned your photography. So how long have you been doing your photography?
Well, I always have really enjoyed that, even when I was a kid. But lately, just since Facebook, started, I've gotten more into um, being very purposeful of taking the time every day. It's really a beautiful part of the things I like to do every day is making sure I carve out some time to receive, because most of my pictures are out in nature, and I just feel like I'm just kind of a witness to capturing these little moments that are already there, for all of us to see. And so it's been a really wonderful thing for me just to take that time every day to at least, snap a couple shots.
Oh, okay. And then um, do you also write poetry?
I have written a little bit of poetry, which kind of, and a few songs that those kind of go hand in hand. A couple of years ago, I had one poem that was published. That's the only thing I've ever had published, but that was really fun. But yeah, I really enjoy that. But
That's
I would say,
interesting.
yeah, I would say I read way more poetry than I write. I really just kind of stuck my toe in the writing process, but I really, really enjoy reading it as well.
Well, that's how it starts.
Yeah.
Well, when we were together in Louisville, you were singing. So let's go right into your music and um, how long that's been a part of your life. And what's the background behind that?
Sure. Um, Really, I have always sung. I mean, from my earliest memories, it's one of my favorite things to do. Um, it's really just always been a part of my life. And I also played the violin growing up. So music has always been a really, really big part of my life. And then um, when I went to college, I studied opera. And then just through a turn of events in life, I had quite a big break in between doing things publicly. I've always sung in private, but for about 20 years or so, I had not done anything publicly until the last couple of years. So that's been a really, really fun thing to get back into.
Have you been able to use your opera skills in your singing?
Well, I think the techniques that I learned, which really is just showing you a healthier way to sing. I try to keep that in mind. I always hear my voice teacher's voice in my head. His name is Jim Mace. He was an amazing voice teacher. He was the one that encouraged me to try out for the scholarship, which is how I ended up back in Texas for college. Um, that's also where I had actually met my current partner. So our my youngest child wouldn't even be here had it not been for that wonderful music teacher suggesting that school. So it was really amazing. But I still tried it when I'm practicing and warming up. I still try to use those techniques. I don't sing opera in public anymore. I would have to get my chops back up to do that, but I still have fun and sing it in private. I love all styles. I do a little bit of everything.
So you did sing opera publicly at one point, or was like in school or something? Is that part of the
Yeah,
process? Or?
yeah, in school and before I had gone to college, when I was taking lessons, we would do things at church. Because he worked at our church, and so I've got some really nice old video from the early 90s which is really precious to me because the one of my good friends that I sang opera with has since passed away. But yeah, so we used to do that back then and then in college as
That is
well.
so interesting. So then you met your partner and brought him back to Kentucky.
Yeah, many, many years later. We were friends, way back then when I think we met when I was like 17 and I was the roommate. His sister was my roommate at TCU. So that's how we met all those years later. And we ended up seeing each other again at her wedding after I had been divorced. So it's just one of those turn of events that was unexpected many, many years later. But all together, we've known each other probably, gosh, almost 30 years. But
Oh, wow,
yeah,
that's a Hallmark movie.
yeah, I know. It really is. It's just wild. Yeah.
I'm going to jump right into your message. Part of what you do now, when I said you're purposeful, um, not necessarily the poetry, but I just know that there's some aspect of what you share has a message. So, are you okay to share parts of that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I do try to really consider anything that I'm putting out into the world, whether it's through conversations, through things that I post or think music, all of it. I really do. My hope is that it's offering some healing for people. Um, I, you know, had, traumatic experiences, but didn't really talk about any of those publicly till starting maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. And so once I started talking about and writing and about those things more publicly, I have just found that the more of my own vulnerability that I can offer out into the world, the more it resonates with what other people are going through. Um, I've always offered my time for free I do kind of like an informal free counseling through Messenger now that Facebook's been invented. And before that, it was just on a one-on-one basis. But the more that I offer my own vulnerability, the more it connects out. I feel like it's just the key to finding that connection, which is really, as you well know, connection is such an important part of healing. And everyone, whether it's through serious trauma or not, everyone has suffered in some way. We're all human, and I just really find that the more of that I offer, the more that it resonates and can help other people.
Well, I have to say that there are people that really say, "Oh, I just hate social media," but you're just pointing out the very positive side. I mean, I see both sides. There can be times where like, "Oh, I don't want to see this anymore." But the ability to connect with people all over the world. Just I think that's just an amazing thing and you've just confirmed that people can get healed
Oh, absolutely. And
through social media.
I know. I mean, it just blows your mind sometimes how intimate those connections can be. And really, it's a matter of people becoming intimate with their own inner world, even if you're not intimate with, people out. on social media, but you're learning how to have that intimacy with yourself, which is so important. I mean, gosh, that's really the key also. And just the people that you meet, it's just amazing. I would have never met you. I would have never met Ron or Lee or all the wonderful people that we know. I would have never had the opportunity to be doing music out there in the world again because I met Ron through Jen, who through a friend of mine who's also passed away. But all of those connections would never have been possible. And I was one of the people, I joined Facebook kind of later in the game. I didn't get on, as soon as it was invented. But I'm so grateful that people talked me into doing that because it's just amazing what can come from it.
And Ron and Lee were the co-host organizers of the very first Wood Songs
Yes.
artist gathering in Louisville, Kentucky. So, and I'm just going to say it was magical. It
Pure magic. I mean, oh my gosh, yes, absolute magic.
so there was a recent video done, and I think I shared with you that it's somber and yet mesmerizing, and it's in my head. And can you tell me about? I want to know the process, how it happened, the song selection. I want the whole story because it is so much in that, and it's a video as well as a song that you guys recorded. But just take me through the whole thing of how that started because it's amazing.
Oh, sure. You know Bill Clark. He was also there with us at the Wood Songs event.
Mm-hmm.
And we both just loved each other's music so much that day. And, had such a wonderful time and we stayed in touch and he was like, I'm going to find us a song. I really want to do a song together. I'll keep a lookout, that kind of a thing. And so a few weeks later, um, he was like, oh, I had heard this Johnny Cash and Roseanne Cash duet. And we were both like big fans of both of theirs. He had never heard the song before. Had never heard the song before, which just of course is perfect. And so he was just like, I think this is the one we should do together. And he had known some of my story, some of my backstory that I had discussed at the Wood Songs too. And so the lyrics, gosh, when he first sent me that song, I think I cried like through the first few. It was a while before I could even sing it without crying because it was such an impactful and healing song. Of course, just the perfect one. And so um, I got familiar with the song, and he and I got together and we ran through it together and did a rough draft together. And we were just like, oh, just loving the process. It was so much fun. And then he has a friend, Ellen, who plays the cello. And he was like, I can hear this cello piece in the background. Let's add a cello. So then we all got to get together because she had sent us a recording added on to our rough draft. So we just had a rough draft with her cello part over it. And then we got to all get together in person twice to get to go and do it together. And she's so wonderful too. And it was just really, really fun. He had us over to his house. He has a studio in his house and had everything set up for us. Um, and he also did the video because he does drone photography. So all those beautiful images from the video are his, some drone footage and some regular footage and some regular photos, but that's all of his beautiful work. And he put all
Oh,
of that together for us after we had the final recording done.
um, the song is September when it comes.
Yes, and that in and of itself, just the song. I'll tell quickly also the story behind that song
Yeah.
is just heartrending. Um, Roseanne Cash had had a premonition about her father's death, and that is when the idea for that song came about. That's when she wrote that song. So they decided to record it together. And it was actually the next September after that that he passed away.
Mm.
It's just the most amazing story. I'm really paraphrasing and shortening that. Please, anyone that's listening, look that up and read her talking about it. And the whole thing is so touching. But that in and of itself is just a jaw-dropping reality of that song. And that's another reason I think why that song is so impactful, because it came from such a place of love to begin with. That was the last song that they had recorded together before he passed. So, and then he actually passed in September. And, that's just, it's just still amazes me every time I think about that.
Mystical. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, well, on this podcast, I always ask people what the quote, bloom where you're planted, means to them. So, what does it mean to Katrina?
I would say I love that question, by the way. I think that's a beautiful question. Um, and it ties in so directly to really how I have felt my whole life. I really, I won't say try because I'm just compelled to do this. I don't think I could live any other way, but I am always taking things as they are and then transforming it and making the best of it. Um,
That's amazing in
finding,
itself.
you know, finding, you might call it finding the silver lining, or, but it's not a pie in the sky feeling. It's very, for me, it's, like I said, I just really can't imagine living any other way. And it doesn't always make things easy, but just very grounded in accepting how things are, but at the same time, seeing the possibility. And that has gotten me through some very, very tough times, just having that. And really, it's a gift. I don't think it's anything I'm doing. I think it's just a gift that, you know, the ancestors, the cloud of witnesses, whatever name you want to put on it, I have always felt very supported and very surrounded with love from all of the things that we can't see, and that helps me stay grounded in what we can see.
Wow. That's all I have to say about that as well, because that, that's not been my experience, but it's a wonderful way to be. And I have to commend you for that. And I shouldn't even get into my critique of what you said because, but anyway. And then your words of wisdom, you've done a lot of different things. You've studied opera, you sing, you've got this recording out, you've got a message that you're promoting, you help people heal. So, what would you say to someone that wants to do or has done what you're doing or done?
I would say the biggest thing is just keep going, keep doing it, do the work, even if you don't call it work, call it fun. Just the experiences and the doing of it, and to not be afraid to make mistakes. That's another thing that has helped me my whole life. I am not afraid to look like a fool. I'm not afraid to be the butt of the joke. I'm not afraid to put myself out there, because I don't really feel like it, I don't take it personally, like it's a reflection, like, oh, so embarrassed, or, thank goodness. I don't have that part of me that is worried about, um, making mistakes. And, of course, I've been in situations where I get nervous and I want to do well, and I want to represent whoever's asked me to do a project well. And of course, I mean, that plays into it. But at the core, just don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just put yourself out there, and the experience is in the doing of it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, so what's next for Katrina? You've seemed to be juggling a lot of things, and that seems to be very typical of some multi-talented people that I've met recently. So what's next for you?
Well, the most immediate thing that I'm super excited about is that Bill Clark has already sent me the next song that he'd like to do. I just got that yesterday, and
Oh, cool.
I am so excited. It's one of the, I mean, it's a song I've never heard. And again, just like the last one that we did, it is one of the most favorite songs I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, I love it so much. This one is more upbeat. It's awesome. I'm so excited and I cannot wait. And Ellen's gonna join us on that too, because there's a beautiful part for cello on that one too. And I'm just so excited about that. And I've written another song since Wood Songs, which has been really fun. I'm looking forward to recording those, and I'm just having so much fun. Yeah.
Wow. I guess I've said a lot of wows in this time that we've been together. So I want to thank you so much for joining me and sharing your words. And I just have to say that people should probably really look at this, the meaning behind September when it comes. I'm certainly going to do that because I know there's more background to it. And it's one of those songs that makes you curious about how this all came about. And I will post your video.
Oh, thank you.
Again, thank you so much. And I'm sure that we will connect again and catch up on what's next for you. And so this is Laura Womack from the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe, and saying bye for now. Bye, Katrina.
Bye. Thank you so much.